Welcome to the Sherborn Advisory Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, October 15th, 2025. I hereby call the Advisory Committee meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. Since this is a hybrid morning meeting, although the person who's supposed to be on Zoom is not here yet, the members will state their names as present so that we can determine a quorum. Laura?
Here.
Nora?
Present.
Paul?
Present.
George?
Here.
Divya?
Here.
Penn?
Present.
And I am present as well. We have a quorum. We can continue. Jeremy, would you mind displaying the agenda for the evening? So tonight's agenda includes reviewing the minutes from our previous meeting. We're going to begin to discuss budget guidance in COLA for fiscal year 2027, and then we'll have advisory committee member reports. Are there any items to add that were not reasonably expected by the chair 48 hours in advance? I do have one. We have a request for a reserve fund transfer, and I am predisposed to adding this to tonight's agenda for two reasons. The select committee voted to recommend this transfer on Thursday evening, and the clerk's office was closed on Friday, so we could not amend the agenda. And then Monday was a holiday, so we couldn't amend the agenda on Monday either. So I'd like to make a motion to add a request for a reserve fund transfer by the Department of Public Works for the Pine Hill School for a study on the water tank, and the amount requested is $43,500. Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll take a roll call vote. Any further discussion on that? To add it to the agenda? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Laura?
Aye.
Nora?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Divya?
Aye.
Penn?
Aye.
And I am I as well. So that is an adjustment to our agenda. So first, we will move to review the meeting minutes of September 24th, 2025. Does anybody have any adjustments to those minutes or suggestions for a change?
Who's taking the minutes now?
Divya?
Oh, thank you, Divya.
So I've had one request from Divya to correct the misspelling of her name. I apologize for that. We'll get that corrected.
And
Any
there,
other changes?
yeah, there are too many spaces between her name and the "and" before my name.
Very good, thank you. I'll get that corrected as well. Sharp eye. Do I hear a motion to accept these minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, Laura?
Aye.
Nora?
Aye.
Adam? He's on the phone, he's not here yet. Paul?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Divya?
Aye.
Penn?
Aye.
And I am I as well. So those minutes have been accepted.
And Stephen, now we voted, may I make a comment on the minutes?
Please.
Two comments. So first of all, I'm pleased I'm the current record holder for the shortest interval between a meeting and submission of minutes for this current year. I lead the board. The other thing is, I know what I sent to Stephen and I know what I read here. His edits are exemplary, and I would suggest that everybody who's going to write meetings for our minutes, read these and study them and follow his minutes, not mine, because I won't send to anybody.
Thank you.
Is Adam on, or because he's looking for the Zoom link, I will send it to him?
He is looking for the link. I
Yep.
gave him the number to call in,
Okay, let me,
and I don't have the agenda to send to him that has the link on it.
excuse me, Jeremy, can I just forward it? Can I forward you the email and you can email it to him? Because you can just invite him to that email. Please, thank you.
I don't know.
While he's doing that, can I ask two annoying points? what was the date of, I just voted on them, so it's embarrassing, but what was the date of the best practice minutes that you just mentioned? Because I have
September 24th, the ones that Steve,
9/24.
9/24/25.
And then my annoying thing, that's not to get out of doing the minutes, but the next meeting
Sent
I
it to.
was scheduled to do the minutes, that's the one meeting I can't come to.
Okay, so then you'll have to swap with somebody.
Yeah.
Maybe swap with the next person, and
Yes.
I'll send that out. And I have a revision to that table anyway. So that's the minutes of 10:29. So Paul, can you do 10:29?
Sure.
And George, you can do 11:05?
Yeah, 11. It's annoying out of the gate. I never have night meetings on Wednesday nights.
Yeah.
The next
2?
29th and 5th, I have night meetings. That one is remote, but,
Okay,
so it's tentative about being able to attend the meeting. I was even gonna ask if I can get like a spot in town hall to have my remote meeting and then join our meeting. But it's gonna be difficult for me to do the minutes.
okay, very good. So we'll have you do them on the 12th,
It'd be great.
and then we'll switch around the other ones. No problem.
And I apologize for that. And all the other dates I have reserved in my calendar. I appreciate you sending them out in advance. Thank you.
We can work around the minute taker. No worries at all. So why don't we move on to the request for reserve transfer, which is going to be presented by Sean Clean. Sean, the floor is yours.
Stay here?
I think so.
Sure.
Yes.
So you, Jeremy had sent, and I assume you sent it, I think everyone had it, both the reserve fund transfer paperwork and the quote or proposal from the engineers. A little bit of background. As everyone probably remembers, we've been working at this facility in Woodhaven quite rapidly on getting up to speed and getting the engineering done so we can do the construction for PFAS filtration for these public water supplies. Pine Hill didn't hit that threshold yet. They weren't above 10 parts per trillion, so they weren't pushed on the same timeline. So we were queuing that up. Part of the last contract with the consultants was to look at Pine Hill. So we did that as the assessment for this building, the fire station, Woodhaven, all at the same time. So what became evident when we went there, I doubt anyone, no matter how well you knew Pine Hill, ever went into the boiler room. But there's a tank the size of a submarine in that boiler room. It literally looks like a, World War II submarine. They must have built the building around it. It's massive. It's steel. It's got some kind of coating on it. And so we knew, the preliminary engineering was, okay, this thing's gonna need to come out of here because it's taking up half the boiler room. It's bigger than the boiler and the water heater and everything else that's in there. It needs to come out. We'll get some good real estate right in the center of the building for all the water system stuff we need. And there's no need to have a big tank like that anymore. We have variable speed pumps that do a much better job. So we were working on that in parallel with, Pine Hill and the same company, Whitewater, that does all the operations for the public water supplies. DEP comes and does sanitary site surveys every year, which is, just kind of where they look at stuff. They check on, how you're testing everything you're doing on a regular basis. And from those sanitary site surveys, there's generally recommendations, if not actions that are gonna be needed. Well, one of the actions that was gonna be needed immediately this year was gonna be to recoat the inside of that tank, which at its age, it's not OSHA compliant for someone to just climb into a tank like that, like you would do 40, 50 years ago. So it was gonna be a significant amount of work. Tens of thousands of dollars were gonna be invested in that tank, which they were obviously kind of holding off doing. And we don't want them to do that, right? It would be tens of thousands of dollars just so we could cut it up with a torch and throw it away. So it accelerated, not so much the PFAS, but the work got accelerated. both because two things need to happen. The tank needs to come out of there. We need to engineer how we get that tank out of there. And what replaces it as far as pump units and everything else. Then PFAS down the road. But of course, because of the schedule, you know, if that was one of the municipal buildings, we probably could have scheduled it. We would have had a different timeline. But as you know, everything has to be done in July and August at a school. So that dictates the timeline, which is slightly inconvenient for town meeting at times. So what we committed to, what we were forced basically to commit to was, we're not gonna rehab the tank this summer, we're gonna remove the tank this summer. So we better get on the engineering. Town meeting is definitely gonna have a capital plan for that, for this project. So we need to engineer the project. That's what was submitted to you, was the same consultants that are doing the other work for us to design that, bring that through to contract documents so Jeremy can advertise that well ahead. You know, we should have at least good engineers' estimates before town meeting, or at least the ramp up to town meeting. And coming out of that, we should be able to go to, you know, get it under contract so that in July, the construction's happening. It's a really tight timeline, as everything always is with the school, but more so critical when you're shutting the water system off. Any questions?
So there is an administrative order from Mass DEP who regulates the public water supply that this work needs to get done. They have set a timeline where construction funds would be sought for at Springtown meeting. We thought it best to try to do the engineering and bidding of the contract, so we have a bid price in hand prior to town meeting. So to fund that work, to do the engineering and do the bid documents, this is why the request is going forward.
One more thing also, what we queued up, very similar to this building in Woodhaven, there's a set of grant funding that myself and Jeremy spent a massive amount of time with the background paperwork. It's basically being funded for PFAS filtration and upgrades to water systems for that reason. So we got a $100,000 grant for the system that's gonna go here, another $100,000 grant for the system that's gonna go to Woodhaven and Leland. I immediately requested to basically, we got invited for this grant funding here. I requested to be on the next round for Pine Hill. So that's in queue. It's a little bit too early because I don't have good estimates on the costs. But it's likely we would at least see that $100,000 mark again to help with that assistance. Whether it came in before the initial construction or during it for the PFAS is yet to be seen, because it'll be a different cycle than what we had here.
So we would line up well. So we've, like Sean's mentioned, we've received $200,000 for water work, 2 different projects. Summing the $200,000, we'd be in good shape to also receive funds through this program. It is funded through federal dollars, however, so it's not a guarantee that that program will exist or be funded with federal dollars this coming year. But if it is, then we would be in good shape to get some funds for construction. Pine Hill School is a town building, even though it's managed by the schools. All the capital work is the responsibility of the town. They do use, the school department does use the same, they fund the maintenance of the water system there, pay the bills to Whitewater, who's the vendor that does the daily maintenance, comes out of the school operating budget, but the capital improvements to that system are a town expense.
Just to, perhaps at the risk of being redundant, the purpose of this request is for $42,500 to create biddable plans to do the replacement of the existing system.
Yeah. And the replacement.
43.5, excuse me.
And Sean, as Sean was describing, the replacement would take up far less space in that mechanical room, freeing up space for other water treatment, potentially some water treatment to remove PFAS in the future.
Is that part of this biddable plan, that part of it, or just the replacement of the tank?
Replacement of the tank and removal. There'd be future engineering and design and construction and other treatment.
It's basically phase one, because if we had not, if say if the tank were, well, no, it wouldn't matter if the tank was, but if we had just gone in on the timeline we thought, the PFAS, the implementation of the PFAS filtration would have required this. So we'll make accommodations for that, which is important anyway, because they're gonna replumb everything that's there. If you picture, there's a lot of plumbing in this boiler, everything will get redone. So it'll be less work later, but there's physically no space in there right now. I was gonna grab some pictures, but
The tank is
I didn't have a chance.
pretty impressive.
It's,
When the tank is removed, then does that automatically lead into the PFAS project? In other words, does it accelerate the whole project, phase two and so on? Or will there be some kind of gap?
well, capital-wise, it won't be, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, not necessarily in that there may be a gap. So we were anticipating that the US EPA would implement some federal standards for water quality for PFAS. That has been delayed. Currently, the Pine Hill water supply is not out of compliance with the state standards for PFAS, though there is PFAS in that water supply. It's not triggering a compliance order from Mass DEP currently. It would have triggered it under the previously considered federal standards. It would have been out of compliance,
So
and
there's
we
just
would
not
have been
federal
required to do
standard?
the treatment. It's quite possible that Mass DEP will move forward and reset or lower the PFAS standards for the common water. So we would be ready should that come.
Okay.
But the town might make the decision to move forward with PFAS treatment anyway, even though it doesn't, Mass DEP wouldn't currently require it. But regardless, the tank now is a water quality issue that is being, we're being ordered by Mass DEP to remove that, or repair the tank, but we'd rather remove it and replace it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking down the road, I have two questions about the actual removal process, the period. So does that tank feed the sprinklers in the building? Will there be a period when the building's fire vulnerable?
There is no sprinklers on that building.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great, I guess.
It makes it a little easier, as long as that makes sense. There's no safety issue here.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
And my,
You're surprised at the sprinklers, right?
no, I'm not surprised by anything that happens in this town. And my other question is, can advisory members come and watch the tank removal? Because that just sounds cool.
Probably not.
Oh, damn.
Maybe on select days. I'm thinking no one's gonna wanna be in that room while they're cutting that.
Yeah, that's probably true, isn't it? That's gonna be a smoky mess, right?
It would definitely be a hard hat and glasses
Yeah.
situation.
That's cool. I'm down with that.
I have a
Anyway.
question, Steve. So I have a question about the $4,000 allowance that's part of the proposal for tank coating testing. That doesn't sound like design work, so I wonder if you can explain why that should be included as part of this.
Well, that definitely needs to be done ahead of the IFB. It's unknown what coatings are in there.
Okay,
So there's testing that has to be done to make sure there's no asbestos.
that makes sense, but I just wonder whether, that doesn't sound like design work. If this is a bid for the design work, should that be part of the capital for the pump and
No,
not part of the
no,
design?
you have to do that. That would be like any, like building construction project where you do your pre-asbestos abatement
Okay,
legwork.
Right.
Because it's part of the design.
okay.
Yeah, we would want the consulting engineer to build into the bid plans and the specifications a proper way to dispose of whatever is on that.
So the testing is part of the design phase?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, the specifications will definitely dictate. We hope there's not asbestos in that coating, but no one would be surprised if there's something we don't want to talk about on the outside or inside of that tank.
That makes sense to me, thank you.
Has there been any further discussion about which account to transfer from the reserve fund to?
No, let's have one real quick,
Well, we've
because
got,
we should, I mean,
yeah, I mean, I
it
would
would be
say,
my consulting line and DPW.
yeah,
I intentionally left it blank.
yeah, I saw that. I think probably if it goes through DPW, then we know that you were the one requesting it. We can even make it a separate line item if it would clarify things. You know, we can put it anywhere.
Is there a consulting line item in the?
There is, yeah. In the
Yes, there is.
operating budget.
So I only asked that for clarification for the motion so that we just know where it's going to.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, there is a contractual consulting services line.
Is there a number?
Yeah, it would be 010-420-5300, followed by 6 zeros.
The department is 420 though, is that correct?
That's correct, that's
Okay.
DPW.
Yeah, okay. Any further discussion? So we'll try to flesh out this motion, I guess. I didn't bring one of the old ones from the last time we did a reserve fund transfer. So I'm just trying to, I'll put something down off the top of my head so we can move forward with it. I make a motion to transfer from the reserve fund $43,500 to the DPW consulting for purposes of the Fuss and O'Neill engineering services for the removal of this water storage tank at Pine Hill School.
I think you're missing a verb, purposes of engaging Dustin O'Neill.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. We now have Adam on Zoom. So Laura,
Aye.
Nora,
Aye.
Adam,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Divya,
Aye.
Penn,
Aye.
and I am I as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Impressive presentation.
It's the third time he did it.
Sean, can I just ask, Sean, can I ask you a quick question? Tree, like what's going on with Eversource and tree work? Like all limbs down, I'm just always curious
What's
about
that?
the trees. The trees along, like dangerous limbs and whatnot along the main routes. Like is Eversource?
Jackie?
No, I wasn't, but
You mean from the tree area?
did she get hit by a tree?
Oh,
So no,
man.
see, like I'm very concerned about this. Somebody in Holliston a month or two ago was killed by a tree limb.
Yeah.
So can you give me an update? Like, is Eversource coming around or are we,
Here all the time.
okay, we're not identifying dead limbs
We
and
do
trees?
all the time. We actually have a lot more live trees come down than dead ones
Okay,
in town. Way more.
So at the previous planning board meeting, you had your hearing, your tree warden hearing. So
We
if you're
did.
curious about it, I think you can
I'll
watch
go
that.
watch that
I
then.
mean, that identified Eversource's priorities. Theirs are a little different than ours.
Mm-hmm,
I
okay,
care about your power on Woodland Street, but I also care about people getting hit by trees.
I have a generator, so
Dead
I
trees
care more
tend to
about people
stand
getting
longer
hit.
than the live.
I care more about getting hit.
Your street
Let's
get
get the
paved
people.
next week, though. That might be more interesting.
And
Well,
by the way, Lynch paving has no relation to me at all. I just want to keep going on record, no
All right,
relation.
let's stay on the agenda. Thank you, Sean.
see ya.
The next item up on the agenda is to begin to discuss the advisory committee's guidance letter and to begin to think about what a COLA adjustment might be for fiscal year '27. So I did send out a draft of the letter. which is somewhat similar to the letter from, for 2026 as well. Also, the letter also included a timeline of the budget process. I also sent out some research materials, particularly from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Unfortunately, with the government shutdown, we don't have the latest data. The last set of data that we have is from August of 25 and from June of 25. I don't know that it will materially change, bringing it up to September 30 of 25. And when it might become published, I don't know. Two things that came out of it was that the CPI index through August of 25, year over year, rose 2.9%. And the compensation for state and local government workers, if we look at wages only, I think that was in the, or a little over 4% range. 4.9%. So that's just kind of a little background. And we heard last week, 2 weeks ago from Jeremy about the global budget and the things that we're facing with health insurance, pension liability. We have a teacher contract coming up, police union contracts currently being negotiated. I don't know where those wage adjustments are coming out at this point. And probably those aren't to be discussed tonight anyway. So I just, begin to think about this. Last year, the adjustment was what the COLA was for Social Security. That is supposed to be coming out probably the end of this month. I think October 27 is the target date, but again, with the government shutdown, we don't know if that will get pushed out or not. Our recommendation is due first week of November, or thereabouts. So I kind of open up the discussion to hear what people are thinking about, given all the constraints that we have to work within, and what you're thinking about, if anything.
Yeah.
Ben?
Has the compensation committee come up with a figure? They usually, past years, they've given a range.
That is tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And the personnel board is meeting tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. And I'll be on that call.
Okay.
So we do wait to hear from them as to what their recommendation is as well. Now, historically, the town has been giving cost of living adjustments, and I think you got a summary of what those have been historically. Mm-hmm. We don't use a merit system at this point. Personnel board is, thinking about that as well, I'm sure. Deb put together a very nice table for background purposes. For every 1% of pay adjustment, it would impact the town by about a little less than $30,000. So a 3% adjustment would be a $90,000 increase in the budget. How many people did that impact? Do you remember?
It's about, I think, 57, give or take, but that's not in counting the on-call firefighters. And
Right.
there's normally about 40 on-call firefighters. They're kind of all lumped in one category.
And we'll get a different request, I'm sure, from the fire department for that rate change, if any, this year.
No, that's included in that.
Yeah,
Oh, it is? Okay,
They're not
okay.
a union.
Okay. So this
That was just saying that, that 50 some odd people, it shows the fire, on-call firefighters as
Yeah,
one.
so I mean, I guess if you want
Right.
to count, that
You
would
want
be
to count them all, it's
90,
like 90 people.
90 people,
Yeah.
but, 40 of them are on-call firefighters that are not benefit eligible, that are,
I just remember some discussion about bringing that rate up to market last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, if the chief proposed to change beyond the COLA, then
Yeah.
that would be part of his budget discussion.
Okay. So this excludes union contracts and other people that have contracts with the town.
Right.
So this is some salary, a lot of hourly people.
Do we know what any other towns are doing?
Jeremy, have you heard?
It's still early. We do reach out informally to our peers to try to get a sense of what they're doing. It's early. We're not aware of information yet.
Okay.
You know, many towns do use social security, that COLA as a benchmark. Just for reference.
And that one was 2.5, right?
Well, that was last year's number, I
Okay.
believe. I just marked in red those things that need to get updated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No, I think that's it.
What information might be helpful to folk to see prior to making a decision?
I think the two pieces we've gotten in the past, the social security number, if it comes in time, it sounds like it may. Curious to hear what the personnel board says. The thing I feel, I just say I find frustrating about this is I wish the town had a system for like a merit-based pay increases. You know, we're tasked with coming up with a COLA adjustment, but I know there's a feeling we should be looking at it as increasing compensation, which it would do, but there's a bit of a built-in conflict in there, potentially. I'm not proposing a solution other than the personnel board figure something out, but they're not gonna do it this year.
So it's curious too about the timeline for finding out about the CBAs for the police union and the educators to try to balance and make fair all town employees. It's kind of one thing that would be good. It might be too late though. I think in general, in the past few years, we've been reasonably generous, I think, with this COLA. And I think in general, like my overall thought is retaining town employees is a nice thing that we give Jeremy and other leaders in town. So I think being able to be somewhat generous about this over the long term helps as far as employee retention, which is good for the long term. I think it's more expensive for us to try to hire and find other employees. So I'm kind of in favor of that, but fairness across all employees and maybe also looking at, have we been fair over the long term, looking at the COLA adjustments for the past 2 or 3 years? Those would be the things I'd look at.
How do you determine fair?
I was about to have my question.
Yeah.
Well, I can say that if you look at, I mean, you're saying that you kind of go along with what Social Security does. Well, back in '24, Social Security went by 8.7%, and the town was at 4.5%. So the town employees are continuously behind the 8 ball. You know what I mean? It's like hard to catch up with that 4% that was lost back then, so.
The educator's contract is just starting to be discussed. It's the term of that contract is through this current June.
And that's I would imagine, a difficult one to compare because there's steps, all different kinds of things for longevity and other things that are included in that. So the percentage increase is probably on the base, not on other things that happen.
Regarding the police union contract, that's currently under negotiation as well, but making rapid progress.
Good.
Is that negotiated every year?
Those are 3-year contracts.
Do you have a guess on when that's gonna?
I prefer not to say.
By January 29th, 26?
The police union contract will be settled prior.
No, I was
That's
kidding,
the
but yeah.
educator contract. I'm not a part of that negotiation.
Right.
So even if I knew, I don't know.
Right.
Sure, I had a quick question about the Social Security Fairness Act of 2025. How many people did that really affect that are getting more money for their retirement because they can now access, if they did pay into it, Social Security benefits versus pension? Did that affect a lot
We
of?
would have no idea, because we would not know individuals' private
Okay.
financial situations.
All right,
Did they do some prior work? Were they paid into Social Security before they became town employees?
so there's no reporting of that.
Not that the town has, no.
Mm-hmm.
It really has no financial impact to the town of Sherborn. In that if they're now entitled to Social Security benefits that they wouldn't have otherwise, that's out of this
Okay.
Social Security, not out of any town pension.
Okay, just clarification, thank you.
Town wouldn't have any records of that per se. That's not a reporting that we would receive.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
When you did that presentation, what did you use as a space holder for that adjustment?
I didn't get that granular by way of, adjusting salaries just for these employees. But what I did in that model that I presented to you, I did make an assumption that overall, the town municipal budgets would increase by 3%.
And there are certain things that are already slated to take up that 3% increase.
Yeah, in addition to that 3%, I did put in hard numbers for two known items, the health insurance costs
Okay.
and the regional dispatch. So in addition to that 3%, I did
Okay,
put
good.
in those two hard numbers. But I didn't get down to the granularity of just adjusting the salary portion of municipal budgets by any set number. And
And
again, that was a gross estimate to get some forecast for you.
And the non-payroll related items, excluding things like health and, other related things to payroll and debt service, there's just not that much.
It's a relatively small percentage of the budget.
Right. Any other thoughts? Any things that people would like to get more research on before now and October 29th? All right, I have nothing else to add then. And before we get into advisory committee member reports, just as a reminder, on October 29, we're going to finalize this letter and the guidance. And we're also going to hear from the Recreation Department about a request to increase their expenditures from their revolving fund to address the Laurel Field irrigation system. So there'll be more materials coming out about that before that meeting. Does anybody have a committee member report that they'd like to present?
Has everybody been officially assigned to committee?
Not yet, no.
Okay, so we're going by default from last year, or?
Sure. If anybody has something that they'd like to discuss, this is the opportunity for them to do it.
Well, I just gave to everybody, maybe we can do it for next time. I put in an email and a phone call to Don Sirianni. He's the educator for the state on conflict of interest law. So I just want everybody to be aware, so I printed out, and Jeremy has it too for the record. Divya, I can email you that, so you can have that for the conclusion, so it's 2 pages, and we can talk about it next time. I'm waiting for a response back for an education seminar, perhaps, even if he attends via Zoom or an evening, so I'm waiting to hear back from him.
Okay.
So that's all I have to say about that. Regarding any reports I have, I don't have any to share.
I have an update on the school committees.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So there was a regional school, so like I'm happy to send you my notes afterwards.
Yes, please.
The regional school committee, the meeting was on October 7th. The revenue looks good. The state budget's finalized. It turns out that there's a positive operating variance of 66K coming from the Chapter 70 money from the state. That was on the revenue side. Salaries are mostly on budget. Expenditures kind of early, but they're not projecting any material variances, right? So they're estimating the E&D, kind of the excess to be certified at about $926,000, or about 3.18% of their overall budget, which is in the target range. So that's kind of sounds positive-ish. For the Sherborn School Committee for Pine Hill, salaries are on budget. The expenditures are, they reported no material variations to date, but the utilities are up a bit by $10,000. The out-of-district placements, I think this is for SPED, they've had more placements than they budgeted for. So like they had 14 instead of 13. So there's a negative variance of $217,000. But on the positive side, that the circuit breaker, the reimbursement that we get from the state for the special education, they got those numbers back, and the town will be receiving $490,000. So it looks like the money from the state should more than cover that. So again, I think that their fiscal year 26 budget looks to be on track as well.
And you and I will be attending a meeting on October 28th
Yes.
for I just put it on my calendar for the
Yes.
school for the
That's what-
regional.
Yeah, with the regional school committee, with Nora and myself from us, as well as with Dover Warrant.
Mhm.
And the objective there, I think, is just to get everyone's input about how the budget process is going, what their priorities are, and so on.
I'm also going to be attending those preliminary meetings, but I can't make that 28th date. That's in the evening, right? That's at
6:30.
I cannot be there.
I'll take good notes.
Please.
When will we be assigned, or should you and I get together to assign the budget
I'm
maker as each
going to-
liaison?
I will prepare a draft and send it off to you probably early next week.
Okay.
I'm trying to reorganize and rethink how to do the assignments so that we get more consistency in how we view the budget. So that if somebody is assigned, I'm trying to group things together differently. Like you have a group of land use departments. So I'd like to have liaisons be dealing with all those land use departments. I'd also begin to think about what is the role of the liaison and how we process the review of the budget as well. If a department comes in within guidance, do we need to have them come make a presentation to us? It's already been vetted potentially by the liaison. It's been vetted by Jeremy and Deb. Do we need to take the time again at the whole committee to get into the details of an $80,000 budget? Since it's already been vetted twice. So I like to, we'll probably talk about this the next time too, about how much meeting time do we want to take up with detailed review of budgets that meet guidance?
May I comment? I think that the public is, I actually think that it should still be coming to us in a public forum via Zoom so that people can see where the money's going, even if it's a smaller budget. I do think that.
Well, they'll have, at the public hearing in March, the details will be presented. But I'm just trying to think through how much do we want to put budget makers through if they've already been vetted twice? Do they need to be vetted a third time or a fourth time as well? I want to be respectful of people's time, both theirs and ours.
I have a question. How many times do we and the budget makers negotiate between those presentations? So if there are changes happening even within the guidance,
I only have 1 year of experience on that, and I would say that it's rare. Frankly, I think it's more educational than it is entering into a negotiation. Because again, there isn't that much to negotiate, because if they're within the guidance on payroll, the other costs are nominal. So you'd be talking about whether or not a person should stay on the payroll, but I don't, so it's rare that I think that you push back. It's happened, but I don't think it's often. And it's on the bigger ones, not the smaller ones.
I guess I'm thinking, and if I can make, so Laura, also thank you for being on capital budget again. So that was one report I neglected to mention, to go back to that. So Peter Morse has reached out as the chair of capital budget, and Laura will be the alternate.
Mhm.
And thank you. So those will be starting, I guess, when the budget makers start putting in for capital budget items. But I do see the need to come before capital budget committee for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
right, you're talking
Yeah.
several millions of dollars
Right.
of spending on that one. Yes, those do get negotiated, for
Right, of
sure.
course.
The operating budget's a kind of a different issue.
Mhm.
Ken?
Yeah, I mean, I would say two things. First, I would applaud the idea of if there are no presentations, the presentations being lean and mean when departments meet guidance or substantially. And then also I would just, I would say I'm leery of even using the word negotiating, because we're not negotiating with them. We set guidance, and if departments want to present a budget that exceeds that, we need to be educated on why they want to do that, so that we can have an opinion on whether or not it's a good idea. And if we feel it's not going to be an idea we can support, we should bring that back to the budget makers. But we don't control the decision, so we're not really, negotiating is not really, I think, an accurate term for what's going on. It's trying to come to a number that we can either agree to put forward or feel we're not going to put forward in the department. The budget maker should know why in either case.
No, it's feedback. Right, that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I feel like we do influence. Or last year, I felt like we talked about a lot of line items, sort of item by item, and it was, I think our questions and concerns had an influence on some of those things. I feel sort of torn, because on the one hand, I feel that, right, if the budget meets guidance, then, what is there to discuss? On the other hand, I could imagine that in individual cases, there might be reasons for the budget to not even be as much as guidance. And that would be sort of an opportunity for us all to sort of look at that and talk about it and discuss it. I guess I'm not sure it amounts to that much materiality, I guess, at the end of the day. So.
I would think, and I agree, we do influence what goes on, but that happens primarily. I mean, I think the first step in that is the meetings with the liaison. And I think that, I think all of us would feel, I would, and I imagine all of us would feel that both the freedom and the necessity to bring any substantial difference to a full advisory in liaison reports. Well, they're in guidance, but I really think we need to talk to them. I think we all need to hear about what they're doing. So I think there's, I don't imagine we're going to close the door to that. I just think streamlining it as a baseline, may make sense.
So maybe the liaisons have a recommendation as to whether the budget maker should come, maybe that's part of the liaison's role, is a recommendation as to whether the budget maker needs to come in front of advisory for discussion, whether it meets guidance or whether it doesn't. Or I guess even if it meets guidance. And
Well, I would suggest that maybe we plan on having the budget makers, all budget makers come, but we let them know in advance whether we expect a presentation on their budget.
what would they do
Or
if they didn't present?
be here for questions from us, from full advisory. I don't know if that doesn't make any sense, but They all come prepared, they all come and they present, and then we discuss. But if we think we've pre-discussed it, maybe, there may be here and say, look, we have questions about these things, may not require starting with the presentation. I don't know if that satisfies the streamlining idea or not.
I think the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think we're in a different position today administratively than we were 5-6 years ago, when perhaps this habit or process was created, that there was not a group in town hall that was as focused on the budget as is currently. So it was the role of the committee to go into detail on all these line items. Now we're fortunate to have a very qualified group of people who are looking at the stuff in detail and having all these conversations and understand globally how everything fits together. I think we're very fortunate to have Deb and Jeremy and their teams that do this heavy lifting on our behalf. Our job, I think, is oversight. Is it reasonable? Does it make sense? Where are we headed? What policies need to be addressed? Might be more valuable use of our time. So so I'd like to try to think of it in context too about where we've been versus where we are today. So that's why I bring it up, frankly.
That makes great sense.
Capital, I agree, is a different set of questions because the numbers are more impactful and quite significant. So we should be understanding that, but that also needs to be done in context of a 5-10-year plan. We have a budget item to review town structures. I'm not sure where that's at yet, which may be adding to that 5-year plan once we hear about what it is, if there's any major items. So that's my current thinking on the matter. On capital, I have a little different approach to it. My opinion is that the debt service should be about 5 to 6% of the budget. And that once we can back into that number, and we already have the debt service amortization schedule, so we know what's been encumbered already, then when we know what the current interest rate is, we can back into how much debt can be raised. And that kind of gives us an idea as to how much capital work we can do. So there are 2 sources of funding other than grants for that capital work, and that is raising debt and using free cash. So we take a look at those things together. And as a policy, I think our role is to say, well, what should the free cash balance be as a percentage of the budget? What should reserves be as a percentage of the budget? These are more global issues that we probably haven't had time to address in the past that we should address now, that perhaps will free up some of our time. That's what I've been thinking about.
We do have 2 different policies for reserves and free cash, but they're a range, so they're like 3 to 5% of the budget. So we've always, in the past few years, we've been at the higher percent of the budget for those balances.
So it'd be interesting to see. I'm sure we can find out what are other towns of our size doing, what's best practice, what's recommended by the Commonwealth. Circumstances change. I don't know when those policies were created. Things are different today than they were before.
Yeah, both of them were updated, I think, in 2022. So
Yeah.
they're relatively updated.
Yes, they are. All right. Anything else?
I keep thinking about, back to the topic that you said about the $7,000 that may or may not be there because of changes at the federal level and how that trickles down. And I just keep wondering where that could fit into the way that we think about budgeting for the town. Maybe we haven't really seen yet what's coming and maybe it's too soon to think about it, but I have this uncomfortable feeling that we might have to do, we might have less to work with.
There are stresses on the Commonwealth that,
Yeah.
that they haven't had before. That's for sure.
And I just don't know where that fits into this process, because I've only been through it 1 year, and I'm not just real sure where that fits into this process. And so when we talk about flat guidance, I'm like, should it be flat, or should it be less than flat? You know, meaning because of circumstances change, and because.
Would you say that most of the state money goes to capital items as opposed to the operating budget?
Yeah, and the grant opportunity that we mentioned prior was, it's an opportunity. It's not, planned in your budget per se. It would help offset a potential capital cost. I guess in these times, fortunately, Sherborn has a relatively small amount of state aid, for better or for worse. But in times with some doubt about how the sustainability of some of that, having a smaller part of your budget is helpful. It means you have to raise a lot more locally, so 90% of your budget is raised by you folks and your local property taxes. But it insulates you a little bit, more so than other communities where they have a higher percentage of their budget funded by state aid.
Even in Massachusetts, you're just saying there.
In Massachusetts, yeah. Sherborn is on the lower side quite lower side of percentage of budget funded by state aid.
Roughly what is it?
5% of your budget.
Including the school?
That's not including school.
Okay.
That's not including chapter 70.
That would be an interesting number to see about what the town receives in the aggregate from the Commonwealth during fiscal 26, both in terms of operating and capital.
Yeah, it's easier to find on the municipal side. It's pretty clear to get on the cherry sheet, they call it.
Yeah.
The chapter 70 is a little different, but comes through the school department.
You're saying it's 5% of the operating budget.
5% of your revenue is short, let's say.
Can I say something building on that, Stephen? Laura's point, I think, is well taken, that the last 3 years, the budget guidance has been flat. And each of those 3 years, the actual approved budget, operating budget at town meeting was between 3% and 6% increase. So we've been funding the budgets through excess levy capacity. So it seems like balancing the town's priorities, which was in the warrant about top flight schools, high quality municipal services, and maintaining the role of character. If we still want to maintain those, something has to give, because there is still limited growth. So if we really want to do that, then having the actual operating budget not increase in the future sounds like at some point in the next few years that's going to have to happen. And it seems like our process doesn't let us get there, or at least in the past 3 years we haven't gotten there. So maybe, to your point, then maybe we ought to think about what are the significant levers for us to try to balance the budget in a fiscally responsible way that still balances our priorities. Because saying flat budgets and kind of questioning individual line items, I mean, we've been doing that for the past 3 or 4 years, and it doesn't get us there.
Well, let me respond to that. Because I think when we say flat, there are certain things that are totally out of our control. We're not saying flat in the aggregate, because that wouldn't be realistic or reasonable. Because payroll, which is probably 60-70% of the budget's has a COLA adjustment anyway. So if you wanted the aggregate budget to be flat, you'd have to be cutting the remaining 30%.
Right.
That remaining 30% doesn't have that much flexibility, because you're in there is debt service, employee benefits. So when we make the recommendation of flat, we're talking about those non-payroll related costs that are in people's budgets. And DPW probably has the biggest non-payroll related stuff in their budget, I imagine. You can't hold it flat. And be in compliance with those objectives. Because if there's a pothole in the road, it needs to get fixed. Or else Jeremy's getting phone calls and he doesn't want pothole phone calls. Neither do the select board members.
Or Sean's getting them.
So it's a dilemma, because the cost of providing services has risen greater than what Prop 2.5 allows. And without development in town of any significance, it's hard to increase the tax base.
Right.
So we do have, no one's surprised, mini overrides when we vote to exempt debt service from Prop 2.5. It's a mini override. So we're not overriding on the operating budget per se for police or fire or schools or whatever, but we are on the debt service line. That's where the flexibility comes in. If we didn't have those exempt numbers, we'd be well over the levy limit at this point.
You know, and if I may, some of that, from the way I understand it, some of what we borrow goes to, in effect, the roadway maintenance is, we borrow quite a lot of money for that annually. Some chunk of that's got to be what would, I think, more properly be under operating, or arguably.
Well, I guess it's capitalized because it has a life to it. It's not a maintenance per se, it's an improvement.
But I guess the question is, well, and we don't need to parse this out now, but where are those lines within that item and some of the other things that we actually treat as capital expenses?
Anybody else have anything?
Just one observation. In the old days, people used to talk about non-property tax revenue sources. And I haven't heard anything. I haven't paid attention to the town in the last few years. Has that completely gone out the window, or is there any movement afoot on that type of idea? Or at one point, they were even gonna make a committee. And there were certain ideas bandied about, and it didn't go anywhere. And so, has there been any discussion or movement in that regard? Is it just, when I saw that pie that you put up at the last meeting, it seemed kind of discouraging. That it seems like we're kind of locked into a course of action that is not a whole lot. You use the term negotiation as, doesn't look like there's a lot of room for any type of, real pushback or anything like that. And I just, has that gone by the wayside, or are there any ideas?
Actually, I like your idea of a committee or some sort of group looking at potential other revenue sources. I think that's a great idea.
Seems like there were a lot of people in town that are extremely well off, and they got there for a reason. So they must know. I bet if they sat in a room and we started to look at things, minds like that could probably come up with something if the right individuals could be recruited to that type of effort.
Do other towns have anything like that? Are there any examples of towns that do things like that?
Yeah, I mean, towns have various committees for, long-term financial planning or, revenue growth. Other communities have different, they're in different financial situations. They have potentially, a fair amount more new growth, which is part of that equation for Prop 2.5 plus new growth. Some communities kind of live on that new growth. That's not necessarily the way, you don't have that sort of set up in Sherborn, so. But, your revenue sources are property taxes, local receipts, and state aid. Those are your three main chunks. Local receipts, there could be opportunities there for additional revenue. Is it gonna replace a sizable portion of your 90% of property taxes? Not likely, but anything that you could find there in local receipts or increase, those are fees that are paid or, other revenue that comes in for services rendered, can offset your property taxes.
Which is another tax on the,
Exactly.
It's
on
another
the,
tax.
on the resident. I mean, I'm just saying.
You know,
it's-
other
These are still
potential sources
taxes.
Or pilot agreements with entities that are receiving town service that may not pay
Yeah.
property taxes.
I mean, for instance, one time they had an idea for a bubble down at the soccer field, I forget the name of it, if you're going toward the transfer station on the left. And it was, you know, of course, it was shot down because I'm not speaking for or against it, but it was a non-starter, even though there was quite a bit of work put into it. In fact, there was a design contract that had a plan, you know, for reconfiguration of the fields and a bubble, and private entities would use that, and it would be a revenue source for the town, and that idea was not ultimately successful, but those types of ideas are, you know, intriguing. The bubble idea, as much as somebody may have been against it, was a very intriguing idea, and the plan that they had was going to, you know, and I can understand why somebody in Sherborn would be against it, especially if you live near there. You don't want increased traffic or potential noise or anything like that, but for the experience of the users, it would have been a great improvement in addition to the revenue enhancement. You know, so that's just sort of a off-the-wall example of something along these lines, you know, that is not proper, you know, something tied to the value of what the town has as an asset, you know, a lot of open space. It seems like opportunity there. You know, my assumption is we're nowhere close to safe harbor for 40B, and, you know, maybe opportunities could be there with a, you know, sort of a friendly 40B project to bring us into compliance with state law and, you know, have a potential source of revenue. But, you know, I'm certain it is beyond my pay grade to come up with ideas like that, but you know, I would think that some effort should be put toward it. You know, it's not necessarily our province to do it, but, you know, we could certainly show some leadership in that regard and get another committee together or something like that.
And there's that large project on Coolidge Street
I'm about
that
to ask, Greg.
should be
Mhm.
coming online within X number of years, under 10, I'm sure. And the other thought is, you know, revenue enhancement would be great. Is there opportunity for further regionalization of certain of the departments to save on some costs? Because a small town like ours doesn't necessarily need full-time employees to do some of the tasks, to share with others, and I think we've had some good success with that. Yeah. So that requires a willing partner, and I think Jeremy's working on it.
For example, like the assessors, right?
Yeah, working on it.
I meant to bring that up in my liaison report.
All right, thank you. So we got a lot to think about. All ideas are welcome.
We are utilizing Royal Fields, for example, and other fields for, you know, Dover, Sherborn, you know, soccer, right? I mean, recreation is charging them. So there is money coming in specifically towards the rec.
Yeah, it goes into the revolving fund.
Mhm.
Does offset some of their expenses, but there were other forms of revenue that could go to your general fund as sources of revenue. I mean, some examples that we currently have, or you currently have, are these 2 mobile towers within town that are on, you know, long-term leases that you
Mhm.
see revenue from.
I mean, that is an example too. That's, at least from my perspective, it's improved my quality of life. I mean, when my hair was black, when I first moved here, I had no cell service. I mean, nowhere. It was challenging. It was, you know, so, you know, I hate to, some people may be very much against the cell towers, but the fact is that's had a revenue enhancement opportunity, and it's improved our quality of life and safety. If somebody is choking it from a pond, you know, you want people to be able to communicate on their cell phone. So anyway.
Excellent. Yes, sir.
So I'm just mulling all this over, and just, kind of an observation or maybe a thought, I know it's always it's not necessarily useful to look at town management like the way you look at a household budget, though sometimes I think that's not inappropriate either. And I think, we've been headed for a few years in a direction that has alarmed me, and I know I'm not alone. And I think as we look at the guidance letter, as we look at the next budget, there may come time, you may look at, sometimes you look at your household budget and you're like, things are tight. There's not a lot of fat to cut. We need to find some lean to cut. So we may just be looking at that.
I, for one, would like to go over, not now, but to start every meeting with, what does 2.5%, operating budget override mean? In a couple of years, if that gets smaller and smaller, and we get into that, right, Jeremy? That becomes a little bit of a crisis if the town then has to vote for an operational override, not capital budget override. Not a capital, but operation. And if the town votes it down, that becomes a little bit of a crisis, correct?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, that's the budget, and you have to fund the services that you provide within the budget.
So it either goes back to the year before? Mm-hmm.
Some cuts in some way, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
If we can get ahead of that
Right.
over time, if we have some time, we can get ahead of that and maybe do things that we don't have to do, but try to be creative or think differently. When we can, we might not be, just as opposed to not pick and choose.
Very good. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? I don't think we need a roll call because there's no member on
Yeah,
Zoom. So,
Yeah, I saw it. It looked like you had a nice seat.
all in favor of adjournment? Aye.
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 All opposed? We're adjourned.